Hey, what's going on? I want to thank you for coming to listen to me talk about breathing. And I want to first have us just take a moment to take a breath. Beautiful. So if you did the classic, then I want to let you know that's okay. But we call that paradoxical breathing. And that is what I did growing up as an asthmatic. And nobody ever taught me, hey, Mike, you should breathe with your diaphragm. Your shoulders should stay relaxed. And all I was walking around being terrible at sports because I had terrible stamina. I would experience breathlessness, and it's really tough to be like out of breath and like feeling like I can't catch your breath standing on a field by guys who are trying to tackle me. It's just a very overwhelming feeling, and just like I don't think there's anything worse than the feeling of suffocation. And then it wasn't until I was about in my mid 20s that I came across this book, The Oxygen Advantage, and it was just really simple stuff. I just learned how to breathe. I learned that the nose is a superior breathing apparatus than the mouth. I learned about the relationship between carbon dioxide and oxygen. And I learned about how to breathe LSD, or light, slow, deep. And that includes with the diaphragm. I learned how to use my diaphragm. And all of a sudden, I went from 1 month being the slow, out of shape guy to reading and putting the stuff into practice. 2 months later, I'm leading the pack on the pitch, being one of the fittest guys. All of a sudden, my breathing is my strength. I'm taping my mouth closed at night, getting way better sleep. I'm way more focused. And now I'm teaching scuba, sharing this, and I love to hold my breath and swim underwater. It's a crazy world we live in. So I kind of want to make that point is that like if I say anything and it's like, wow, I'm breathing really terribly. Well, the human body is really good at adapting. And like I said, that was me for 23 years. Breathing was my total weakness. I had terrible asthma. But things can turn around. It just takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of information. So I want to share some of that information with you. Maybe it sparks something and you keep on practicing with it and it changes your whole life. But the biggest first thing that I learned in this book was that the nose is way better at breathing. And that was not something I ever really thought about. I was like, I'll just get it in however I can. But I was coughing like every once in a while. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. It's just like a cough. And that cough kind of dries out my throat. And then I feel like I'm coughing again to cover that up. And it's just like a vicious, weird cycle. But the nose, on the other hand, warms the air, it filters the air, and it restricts the air a little bit, which I won't get into right now, but will help with the overbreathing problem in the United States. But think about that. We have this thing that's designed for breathing, and this thing is really for eating, but we can still use it for breathing. And at the time, I was still having some issues breathing through my nose. The classic: if you don't use it, you lose it. And I was like, okay, dang, but figured out a very simple exercise to unclog the nose, and it works if I'm having serious issues with clogging or just like a little bit. And it goes as simple as exhale, pinch my nose, and then either walk 15 steps or move my head back and forth 15 times, but something that moves the body on an exhale. And then that first one may not work. It may work. I repeat it usually for 10 minutes at the top of every minute. And that, like, I did that the first time and it cleared up my nose. And I just focused on using my nose to breathe. And I was like, and I got stronger and stronger and stronger. And now it's just like, it's what I use. I'm a nose breather. It's crazy. I'll even go so far as to tape my mouth closed, like I said, at night to know that I'm breathing through my nose at night. And at first, I would wake up and it'd be ripped off and somewhere on the bed. But with practice and repeated effort, now I wake up and it's still right across my lips. So I know I'm breathing through my nose 24/7, which is And the next one, if you want to bear with me, I'm going to teach you a little bit about some science. Maybe it goes over your head, maybe not. But when we're breathing in air, we're taking in about 21% oxygen, and that's going into our body. But if I were to hold my breath, and all of a sudden I'm getting this urge to breathe, like my brain's like, ah, I need to breathe. That is not the oxygen levels dipping down too low. That's actually the carbon dioxide levels increasing that say, hey, you need to catch a breath. And that way, these never drop down too low because the carbon dioxide levels are like, hey, warning, warning. So unless we're doing any kind of serious breath holding exercise, the oxygen level is not going to be dripping down too low, which is cool. So that carbon dioxide is something I had a really bad tolerance to. I was like, I hold my breath for 10 seconds and I'm like freaking out. But that was something that I started to understand with. I started to learn more exercises on how to build up that tolerance. And now it's like it becomes like a friend, where it's like it keeps me more calm because I'm less reactive if I were to be without a breath, which is interesting. And that carbon dioxide is actually something that we need because like when we inhale and we have the oxygen that fills our blood, like our blood is almost always fully saturated with oxygen. But the thing is, we don't need the oxygen in our blood. We want it in our brain and in our tissues and in our cells or in our muscles. So we need to get the oxygen from the blood to the muscles and the cells. Well, carbon dioxide's hanging out over here. And when the oxygen comes by, it's like, hey, yo, give me some of that oxygen. Come on by. And the oxygen steps over, and the carbon dioxide takes its place, and it goes back on the blood, back to the lungs, and we exhale that carbon dioxide, and we use the oxygen with our physical activity. So the more carbon dioxide we have, the more it's like, hey, more oxygen over here. So we actually can oxygenate our body, not by taking in more air, but by having higher levels of carbon dioxide. So if we can tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide, we can oxygenate more of our body and become more efficient. So let's look at what these functional breathing patterns look like now that we have a little bit of a science of like, okay, oxygen, carbon dioxide, there's a gas exchange going on. I want to be breathing through my nose, but how? Just how should I be breathing? And I want to give you 3 simple things. And I say breathe LSD, or light, slow, and deep. These are 3 simple things that I always refer back to on how I should be taking every breath, whether it is sitting down, working, exercising, doing yoga, scuba diving, all the same, light, slow, deep. And the first one, light, is like a gentle breath. So I don't want it to be very forced. I want the air to kind of just fall into my nose. And you see these little nose hairs? I want them to not even really move. They should just kind of. So you ever like sit at a restaurant and you hear the guy next to you breathing? Or you ever see someone breathing where you're like, we want it to be much more relaxed, gentle, soft. Good one to practice that one is just to sit down, lay down for like 10 minutes and just practice breathing really gentle, where you like barely feel the air coming in and barely feel it leaving. You will feel the heat on it when it leaves, though. So we're breathing light, and now we also want to be breathing slow. So this should look like a relaxed cadence, like a timing of 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. In, out. In. And if we do that for a minute, that's 6 breaths a minute. But a lot of people are breathing double that. They're breathing 15 to 20 breaths a minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year, and that's a lot of breathing. Now if we think about that, think about our hearts beating all the time and our lungs working all the time. Would you rather have them working like this or like this? And a much more relaxed pace is ideal because we want a low resting heart rate and a low respiratory rate so that we're breathing very little at once. A lot of people are, like I said, are over breathing and they're overworking their body, which doesn't do anything. Now, this is a great one, again, to practice laying down for 10 minutes, staring at a watch, and just practicing inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds. Fantastic. This is also what I tell people to go to. Is you ever hear take a big breath? You know, I'm having anxiety or panic or something, and take a big breath or a deep breath. But that's actually going to just further the issue. And what I always suggest to people is that they return to this cadence breathing and okay, no, I'm freaking out. Let me just 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Take back control of your breathing. Take back control of your life. Take back control of your thinking. So if I'm breathing light, I'm breathing slow. The last one is where I want to be breathing. And it's deep. And this is referring to the diaphragm. And this was, again, what we were talking about earlier is if I take a breath and it's up there, that is very stressful. It's a lot of pressure on the chest. I'm not getting access to the deep part of my lungs, but I actually want it to be looking something like this, the diaphragm. So as we see, we have this muscle here. As it pulls down, it fills the lungs. So what that looks like is when I inhale, so you ever hear the old expression like breathe into your belly? Well, the belly is just one part of it. You know, that is the out. But we also could be expanding from our ribs and our lower back. That diaphragm comes down and expands 360 degrees. And this is a muscle. So if you're not getting a lot of expansion, a lot of belly out, a lot of rib action, that's okay. It comes with more practice. This is a great one to practice. But look at the rib action here. So we want that expansion there, not just the belly out. But it takes practice. Like I was always breathing the opposite. So when I'd inhale, my chest would go up. But this can stay all relaxed. And then if I'm laying down for 10 minutes, I can have this book on my belly and I can just practice inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And it took me a little bit of practice to understand, like, okay, like retrain my brain to retrain my body on how it exactly works. And then as I started to get that pattern formed, then I could strengthen the muscles in the ribs and the diaphragm so I get more expansion. And that way I could take bigger breaths in and bigger breaths out when needed. And if I'm pairing breathing light, breathing slow, and then breathing with my diaphragm, so through my nose, but with my diaphragm, then that's what I call functional breathing. And then this is how we can retrain our relationship with carbon dioxide. And as long as we're using our nose, we're not going to lose it. It's just going to get stronger. We can start to combat things like low energy, bad sleep. The anxiety one is one of the biggest ones for me, because this is something I deal with, something I hear from everybody. Some anxiety, overthinking, racing thoughts. But if we're bringing our attention to the moment in our breathing, and sometimes that anxiety, that over breathing blows off all the carbon dioxide. So now I'm not getting that oxygen to my brain. So I'm actually, yeah, my brain's not working as well. And I'm starting to, because of the hyperventilation, starting to get anxiety. The anxiety is leading to hyperventilation. And it's just a vicious circle that's not going to have any kind of pattern interrupt. But if I can cut that, return back to my light, slow, deep breathing, get that oxygen to where it needs to be, control my breathing, control my thoughts, control my life, then I'm just back to being a human. We're not designed to suffer. We're designed to just function. And that's where I want everyone to be. I want everyone to have a good time. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to have fun. And to summarize all that a little bit, clear the nose up. Even if it's in serious bad shape, we want to be breathing through our nose. We want to maybe understand, if you can, the relationship between carbon dioxide and oxygen. It starts to give a lot of power once we understand a little bit more of the science of what's going on. And then as we start to work those, we can start to do the pattern of breathing light, slow, and deep. So gently, a nice slow cadence of 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And then we're breathing deep into our diaphragm, keeping this totally relaxed. If we're breathing light, slow, and deep through our nose, reestablishing our relationship with carbon dioxide, we're just in better shape to be humans and have fun, do the activities that we love, have newfound strengths in yoga, in scuba diving, in walking, in running, in lifting weights, whatever it may be. So I really appreciate everyone for listening to us. Again, this is always like a daily practice, from doing it to learning it to teaching it. So if you ever have any questions, you ever want to talk to us, please feel free to reach out. All of our information is down below here. Just give us a shout anytime. We'll be happy to talk. And again, I appreciate you for checking out this video. This is really important information, and I'd like us all to breathe a little bit better. So take it easy.